So for everyone waiting for Venerable Amy's teaching, she's running late, obviously. So we're just sitting tight, and I'm talking to folks online as well. So as soon as she gets here, we'll begin.
Thank you. So a great time to reestablish our motivation. You can just think, once again, we get another session to remind ourselves about death and rebirth, to understand a little bit more about the situation, how best I can help myself get oriented for this little bit stronger transition, okay? How best I can help others, and how I can use that information on my path to enlightenment to hopefully benefit all living beings. Just take a moment, reestablish your motivation. And let's reflect again. Just reminding ourselves, this could be our last day. I actually start the day with, this is my last day. This is my last day. How would I like to be on my last day? And just checking up again. Death is certain, it's inevitable. Just think in the back of your mind, I am definitely going to die. I'm definitely going to die. And I have no idea when that will happen. I have no idea. Let's explore the reasonings under this second heading, that I have no idea when death will come. Number one, we live on a planet with an unfixed lifespan. Just review for a moment all the different people you know who have died and all their different ages. All the different people you've read or heard about that have died and all the different ages. There's no set, fixed age you will die that you can know right now. No set fixed age. It is not like that on this planet. There's no way you will know when you're going to die. It could happen at any time. And think of all the things contributing to our death. Natural disasters, accidents, viruses, bacterias, violence. $84,000 different diseases and afflictions alone that the Buddha said. Very few things really supporting this life. Just think, I have no idea when I will die. And think of the body being so delicate, so fragile. So haven't you known people that you thought they were very ill, very old? You thought for sure they may not make it through the year, but someone else you know much younger died. Just reflect on that and think in the back of your mind, I have no idea when I'm going to die. So feel this commitment in your heart. I am going to practice now. I got this perfect opportunity. And because I don't know when I'm going to die, I better get to it now and get this practice happening and use this life as meaningfully as possible. Make that dedication in your heart right now. Please relax, and when you're ready, slowly open your eyes. So in our remaining time today, and we will see how, we'll take a break in this session, and we'll see where we are at 4 o'clock, whether we need a little bit more time, because we started a little bit late. So thank you for the flexibility. But there's a good chance I may finish at 4, so we'll see how that goes. What I want to do is, I did send documents to Donna, and I think I sent them to Donna and Linda, and they can make those available for you. And what I sent was the reading list I had put together, and it's just a suggestion. There's so many books on death and dying, so I just wanted to let you know that's available. And then there is a...
Those documents are already uploaded, and you go to any of the pages from Venerable Amy's visit, and there's a link to those documents.
Wonderful. Well, that was efficient. That was quick. And what I did is I didn't find the chart that I think Venerable Condro has, which she mentioned to me, we talked yesterday, for her next week, where she'll be talking about a Dharma will. I couldn't find the one I wanted that's very detailed. So what I found was a kind of list that's a good guide of the disillusions that we did the meditation, the different internal experience, but it doesn't list everything I like. So I think hers is going to be more complete, but this is just a little added component. She'll have the good one that you can look at, and if I find the one I had, I'll send it on, but I couldn't find it quickly this morning. And then what there's some additional materials. So there's a link, I believe, to on the FPMT website, a link to a whole vast array of death materials that you can look through with links. Some of them go to the shop where there's a booklet, things like this. And one of those I wanted to talk about that's available, that I would encourage you to look at and read from time to time, is a beautiful, profound text by Kabji Pabonka Rinpoche called Heart Spoon. Heart Spoon. It has been re-released by Lama Zopa Rinpoche with a new title. I can't remember the new title, but the original title was Heart Spoon, but what it is the spoon, when you've got kind of a porridge, or they talked about like a young coconut, you'd reach the spoon end to get the essence. So it had a new title talking about the essence, taking the essence of the heart essence. And what it's really about is a document on dying. And it's really an interesting way to think. It's like a meditation unto itself. So I would recommend having a look at that. It's like a longer poem, basically. Very worthwhile to read through it. And that's available in the FPMT at the shop that you can search. And I'm trying to think of what other materials. There's a whole list of materials I listed. And then I also listed, anyway, you'll see all the materials. And one of them is a marquee, like a movie marquee. And it says, "Death coming soon to a body near you." Okay, so you just have a little amusement. There is that, and it's sometimes we need a little jolt to say hello. So one of the things that's happening, different people I've spoken to this weekend have all sorts of life's major challenges. Okay. So meaning you may have gotten a critical disease that you're dealing with, Maybe you're able to get treatment. Maybe it's not treatable, so you're dealing with that. And maybe you've lost a child, something like that. Maybe you have other issues with your children. I'm talking with a lot of friends right now that have children that are addicts of various substances. They've been dealing with lifelong. The children are in their 50s now. So just all these things that people deal with in life that are like that. So what you want to think about with some of these things is orienting it. If it is your own diagnosis that you got of cancer or something like that, you get a little wake-up call. It's kind of like death going, hello, remember me? I may be coming sooner than you think, okay? But it's actually, if it's treatable and you're able to kind of look at it and use your Dharma tools to look at that, okay, it can be a valuable wake-up tool. Some people said, oh, that was the thing that got me on the cushion. That was the thing that got me doing this course. That's when I needed to know. And the same with the loss of a loved one. You know, as shocking, as dramatic, as unexpected as it comes, in an order that it shouldn't be on the planet, like that. And sometimes you realize, like, wow, samsara really, really sucks. You know, there's nothing here for me, you know. And yet we have a precious human rebirth that is here. How do I want to use that now? How do I want to use that? And if I can recover myself and get myself rebalanced from this horrible tragedy or whatever it is, right? I'm going to be bigger to support other people going through that don't have the tools, that don't have the support. So again, the crux of our practice is bodhicitta. Bodhicitta, right? Helps us deal with everything. Bodhicitta is that's the magic. That's the magic of it all. And who was I talking with? Was it yesterday? I can't remember. I talked to so many people yesterday, but there's something, a few people were asking me something about this, and this wasn't working, and what do I do? And there's so many practices, and there's so many, you know, things like this, and it seemed like, and here's the thing with Westerners. Some of you have been to India and Nepal. Fantastic. So, what happens is you see some people in what I'll call undeveloped countries, even though India is turning into a developed country. It's quite exciting what's happening in India to some degree. But you see people, and you'll see people carrying bricks on their head all day long for, like, you know, 50 cents for the day. Like really poor people. And you see all these different things happening. And what happens is that the beggars that I've spoken to in Dharamsala, I've actually gotten to know some of them. They live in tents, and they come during the season. So they know when His Holiness is teaching, and they get their tent, they get their positions, and I hate to say this, they do well financially. So one of them I got to know well. This is probably not normal, but she sends her kids to boarding school in Delhi. She's living on the street in a tent. I'm not kidding. I know this woman really well, okay? But she explained her thing, and she also there's this acceptance of where she is. Now, there's a caste system in India, okay? We have a caste system in this country as well. Seriously, read the book Caste by Isabel Wilkinson. It's fascinating. And here we are in the South. So our country never acknowledged that there's an issue, really, with slavery. You know, it's different what Nazi Germany did with the Holocaust, where they have major monuments about the Holocaust right in downtown Berlin, you know. And anyone else's name that was a Nazi, none of that is allowed in Germany. It's illegal to have any kind of statue or anything like that of any of those people that perpetrated that. That is not the case with the Confederacy, is it, in the United States? Right? We still have monuments to some of these people that thought slavery was a good idea. So we haven't owned it yet. That's a caste system. Okay, so India has a caste system, which was the original caste system. And there's an acceptance for certain people, okay, of where they are. And so her mind is kind of peaceful being a beggar on the streets of Dharamsala. She kind of knows her space. So physically, her life is hard. You know, her getting water, her going to the bathroom, how she establishes. She moves by season, where to go, where to get the best. You know, they're very savvy, some of the beggars. Not a great lifestyle, but she's kind of accepted this thing. Little bit less mental anxiety, you know, but physically hard life. And I see these people live in Delhi, it's horrible. In the cities, it's horrible. I mean, they're really poor, like that. Okay? And then here we are, and we have every creature comfort, right? Every comfortable thing, right? And our minds are a mess. So much anxiety and confusion. And so we just want to think about it, like, God, why can't I simplify stuff and take it slowly and little by little. So I was talking with somebody yesterday, and we were talking about the practice and these different things, and then I just said, well, you know, why don't you orient it? Don't forget about bodhicitta. Like, why are you doing all this? Because you can do all these practices. You can do tantric practice. You can visualize the most elaborate mandala system you want. And if you don't have bodhicitta, and if you don't reflect on emptiness, you miss the boat. It doesn't matter what you're doing. None of it matters. You're not planting positive seeds by doing those practices. So why don't we keep it simple? Bodhicitta and emptiness. Now you might say, well, emptiness isn't simple. What about the good heart of bodhicitta? Just start there. That's the crux of this tradition. It's so beautiful, and it takes away, every time I get myself out of the way, I'm so much happier. But when you get yourself in there, then I should do this. We have a multiplicity of options, don't we? I was like, I can do this, maybe I should do that. What do you think about what could I do that's going to be the most beneficial thing for all living beings? To get me to a place where I'm unlimited. That's how I make my choices. It's an easier way for me to make my choices. What will bring the most benefit? Not just for me, with a bigger benefit. And bodhicitta is not just about benefiting all living beings. It's about getting enlightened to benefit all living beings. Again, that you have to have that traverse through the means to become a Buddha, because then you can do it perfectly. And that's what we want. So some people go, my motivation, benefit all living beings. You missed to become a Buddha to do it fully, unlimitedly, perfectly. So keep bringing that in. I think I told you a story, or it was during the pandemic. I was in kind of a mini retreat the whole time, but then I did a formal 6-week retreat, and I told my family, offline, no phone, I'm done. I got everything ready in the house, and told the neighbors I'm in retreat, and I even arranged, and I thought it would be expensive, but it wasn't. There's a Whole Foods about 15-20 minutes away. I don't usually shop there because I think it's expensive. It's not that expensive now since inflation. But I used my brother's Prime account. So it was very reasonable. And they delivered food right to the door. Nice food. So I could just order once a week or what I needed. Easy. It was super easy. So I did this retreat. And I decided in my own deity practice, but I would focus on, and it's always good to have lam rim, so I'd focus on bodhicitta. That was going to be my main meditation. 6 weeks, sessions, boom, 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 over and over, the same topic, over and over and over. And you think it doesn't have an effect. You think it doesn't make a difference. Again, everything comes from your mind. And this is ways I reinforce my practice and deepen my faith. You have to learn how to analytically meditate on the lam rim. Please do that. It's really effective, right? Come to the course in Dharamsala, India in November, okay? I'll teach you how to do it. But it's really effective. There's some things online. If you need a card, if you want to connect to my website, it's connected to a YouTube channel these students set up, and you can watch all these courses if you want. So I finished the retreat, 6 weeks. I live in between 2 big grocery stores called Giant, okay? You're familiar with the chain. It's like Safeway, okay? I live in between 2. One of them is really good, and the stocks, did I mention this yesterday? Okay. The shelves are stocked, you can, very helpful. The other one is not that good. I don't know, they're managed differently. I didn't realize that they're managed differently, and often I can't find the items, and nobody's there to help, and if you do find somebody, they don't want to help. So somehow I ended up in the difficult store. But it was pandemic, we all have our masks on. It was the first time I'm in the grocery store, and then I kind of get in the store and I went, oh, right, this is the one, I'm not going to be able to find these items. So every time I go to the thing, item is not there. And I knew there's a supply chain issue anyway, so I was like, all right. But what I do is when you're there, I could never find a salesperson. But there was a salesperson unboxing, putting things on the shelf. So again, the retreat must have had an effect. So I look over, okay? But what we do is we look over, and you go over to the person, excuse me, I'm not considering what they're doing, I need something. Okay, so we come over. Now granted, they are there to help, but I'm a little bit more in my experience. I need something. But instead, I sat there and I looked at them and went, they look kind of busy. They're doing their job. So, and I wasn't really in their line of sight. So I just waited, but it was interesting, just the thought, what's going on for them? The guy turns around. I didn't say anything, I didn't call for anything. He goes, oh, can I help you? And we're both masked, so you only see the eyes, which was always hard, right? And I said, oh, you look busy. And he goes, no, that's okay. And I said, oh, thank you. I'm wondering, this item, do you have any, are there any, do you think there's any in the back? They would never in that store ever go in the back. If I found, they never, ever once went in the back. And the guy goes, let me check. He comes out with the item. So I was like, thank you so much, that's so kind. And so the store is big. So I hit 2 other areas. Same thing happened. They're not on the thing. There's a salesperson. Right away, find a clerk. 3 times they went in the back and they came out with my item. 3 times. And I'm really, like, I'm checking out and I go out in the parking lot, back to the car. And all of a sudden I thought about it. I was like, this is different, right? Never had this experience at this store before. This bodhicitta stuff, maybe it works. You know, I think it's pretty good. Seriously. But again, it deep, because clearly it was from my mind. Something must have, I'm not a great practitioner. I'm an ordinary person. I'm not a holy person. Don't have this thing, nun. No, I'm an ordinary person. Right? I'm just muddling along like you are. Okay? It has an effect on your mind. I was so convinced. I was like, huh. You know, I knew I did a good retreat. You know, I knew I was really trying these sessions and something, you know, shifted. It doesn't mean it won't shift back another time, but we have to try and do it. So bodhicitta, this is the practice. It's the practice. It keeps everything aligned and balanced, and it's not easy. So there's 2 methods to develop bodhicitta. That's another course. Please explore that. Please explore that. It's the most useful thing to keep our minds peaceful and broad and expanded. So I wanted to mention Heart Spoon. Please read that. And I want to mention, these are my notes here. Hello. Here we go. Okay. What I'm going to do is the practical applications. Let me just see if there's something else I wanted to go through here. When we have more time, and something you can think of now, I would recommend. When you have more time. Oh, and I do want to go back to what I wanted to have you think about. You could add this, do this after this course. When we have more time and I lead a longer retreat, Dharamsala in November, I ask people during the retreat, number 1, plan your memorial service. Have you ever thought about it? Some people know. Some people have it all sorted, what they want, okay? Plan your memorial service, and you can every day write down a little bit. Like I have people, they have exactly what music they want, who's playing the music, who they want to read things, what they want them to read. You could be as elaborate. Some people have written their obituary. These are exercises. Think about it. This is going to happen. If you don't plan your memorial service, there may not be a service. You may not have anybody to deal with it for you, right? They may do stuff you don't want. You put it all in writing if you'd like. Give it to people you trust. Here's what I want. You can think about it. Some people do it when they're dying of cancer. They realize, okay, here's what I want. I had a student, she wrote her obituary. She was dying of cancer, right? She said, I might as well write it. You know, then it'll say what I want it to say, right? Like that. That's one thing you can do. Here's another thing. You've all heard about a thing called a bucket list. A bucket list, okay? So there's an ordinary bucket list, and that bucket list are all the things you want to do before you die. Places you want to visit, trips you want to go on, things you want to do with your kids, anything like that, okay? So there's a second bucket list, okay? And some of you may have seen the film The Bucket List, okay? And there's some interesting Buddhist films, commercial films that have a Buddhist nature. It's a film, it's an interesting film. Jack Nicholson, I think, and Morgan Freeman. And there are these 2 guys that become friends in the hospital. So anyway, you can have a look at that film, The Bucket List, and what kind of insights they have befriending each other like that. But here's the second bucket list is instead of the things you want to do, this one's a little bit more important. What qualities would you like to develop in yourself before you die? Those are the things you are going to take with you. What are the qualities you'd like to develop in yourself before you die? We never think about that, really. And that's a way of countering delusion in your mind. You know, if you realize you don't have a lot of patience, okay? So that's a way of an antidote to aggression and anger and hatred. To having that forbearance, that bearing up under harsh circumstances, like that. So it can be really helpful to think about those things. And so sometimes I, in a longer retreat, ask people to work on those things as they're doing, so they have time to write things down. Okay. Practical situations, okay. We need to get our paperwork together. We need to get our paperwork together. What does that mean? Oh, sorry, we have a couple questions. Let me just interrupt for a second. This was from Facebook or wherever?
Yes, from Zoom yesterday, and we ran out of time.
Okay.
So.
Here's one question. Let me just take this for a moment. Do we always need to be reborn? Do we always need to be reborn? So the issue is, you will be reborn. It's not an issue of do you need to be. You will be reborn according to Buddhist philosophy and teachings. Is you will take rebirth somewhere in some realm, in some world system, is what the teachings came from the Buddha, from an omniscient being. So it's not about needing to be reborn. Ideally, in this tradition, Mahayana tradition, you have a wish to want to be there for all living beings and to want to continue to evolve to a Buddha to benefit all living beings. And then as a Buddha, you still take rebirth, but you control the rebirth. So you can go to any place you want that's going to be of the biggest benefit. And as a Buddha, as an omniscient being, you can take multiple forms. You can emanate and manifest multiple bodies, and you can be inanimate or animate. You could be a flower that turns one student to the Dharma. You can manifest like that. Imagine if you have a mind that could do that, to be anything simultaneously. And the other way you help, because your mind is omniscient, vast, spacious, pure, okay? You know everybody's past, present, and future karma in all world systems simultaneously. So it's an inconceivable mind state. It's almost hard to conceive of that, okay? But as a result of that, anybody comes to you, you know exactly how to advise them for the best benefit every moment. And you're focused on a conscious level of all the beings that need help simultaneously. Sometimes when I was with Lama Zopa Rinpoche, you'd be talking with Rinpoche, and we used to joke about this, and all of a sudden Rinpoche would kind of be like, you know, in the middle of your conversation, you kind of feel he kind of went, all of a sudden he was somewhere else, even though physically, there he was in front of me. And it was almost like he was like zooming, like all of a sudden, wait, somebody needs help over here, you know, what do they need? Like, you know, and something like that. So imagine manifesting like that. Because some of us are very busy, right? And you feel like I don't have enough bodies. I feel that way all the time, you know. So I can have one body that stays longer at Kadampa Center. I have one body that can do these other teachings like that. One body that can help my family, you know, and I have one body that's going to Hawaii, right? And one body that's going, you know, but you really can, you know, wherever, and your whole wish is whatever beings need help, that's where you are. So you always have a job, you know, and that's something that brings you bliss, that kind of work. So you're always blissfully happy, and you're never going to run out of work because there's countless living beings like that. So a lot of us go, you know, we have to think about helping people, and it's like a chore, and then you kind of go back to your mind. Me, myself, and I. Self-cherishing I, self-grasping. Okay? And then you kind of stretch a little bit more, and you go out and you volunteer, and you do your volunteer work, and you go, I feel good about that, and then you go back to that ordinary existence. But as a Buddha, highly realized mind, that's where you get all your glee, all your zest. You know, and I saw Rinpoche in action again and again and again. Saw Rinpoche in action. You know, we went once to an Indian restaurant in San Francisco. There were, I don't know, 5 to 7 of us at the table. And you know, you think about how you come into a restaurant, and the owner The owner recognized Rinpoche, just knew he was somebody holy, Indian man. They're very spiritual. So he saw Rinpoche, was so excited, and was like, he's coming into my restaurant. And he gave the menus out, and the whole time he looked at Rinpoche like Rinpoche was a Buddha. You could see this incredible devotion. Beautiful. So we sat down, everybody had the menus, and our thing is, I'm hungry, what am I going to order? Rinpoche was all focused on him. Okay? So anyway, we're there, and he hovered around Rinpoche. And Rinpoche's looking at his menu. This man, right? Like that. A sentient being. So in the morning he had a motivation. I want to become a Buddha to benefit all sentient beings. That's this man. But we're all focused on our menus. What are you going to order? Didn't pay attention. So then we ordered. Right? And then what that tells us is we ordered, we're going to hang out, we're here with the Holy Guru, we want to talk amongst ourselves. He can go away now. He took the order, right? So he took the order, put the order in, but he came back because he wanted to serve. He wanted to know, do we want anything else? Indians are very hospitable people. It's just part of their culture. But he came back and and so some of us were kind of looking at him like, hello, like, what do you need? But Rinpoche was like, how can he serve him? Bodhicitta. It taught me such a huge lesson of the way Rinpoche treated him. I was like watching that. I was really like, I need to learn that in restaurants. You have a mutual experience in restaurants. It's you and your server. You and your server. You need them to get your food, and you need them to get your food nicely. And they love when you're nice. My niece is a server at times. She tells me stories. And when you're not nice to your server, they spit in your food. I'm not kidding. I didn't think that happened, but she says it happens, right? She tells me stories of the way people treat her. Unbelievable. So again, here's a sentient being. Anytime there's sentient beings to help. Anytime. Sometimes I know I'm in a parking lot. You're going in a parking lot and there's the space, and there's you in another car, and it's really crowded. Give them the spot. Don't you love when somebody gives you the spot? Let them have the spot. It's just a parking space. In the old days, now we have Easy Pass. Okay? In the old days, we didn't have that. You had to pay tolls. Right? What was so fun? Paying the toll, the person behind you. And it was so fun to look in your mirror and you'd see them, and they see the little interaction, and then they go, they pay my toll? You see the person? Hey, like, what a gift, right? Okay, maybe not over the Verrazano Narrows Bridge that costs like $11, but, or whatever it costs. But there's so many opportunities. So it was such a lesson for me with Rinpoche. Here's our server, but he's looking, and it was just this beautiful experience and I could see some people at our table kind of a little testy and like, what does he want? Like, we're talking, we've ordered, and so many opportunities to help. Okay, so what was I talking about there? Anyway, I was talking about paperwork in order. Yeah, that's what I'm just reaching for, paperwork. Now, paperwork is really helpful because it's easier for all the people you're leaving behind. Where's my nice one? I have my old one, but... Here we go. Okay. This is a sample. 5 wishes. Some of you are familiar with this. This is called 5 wishes. This is a document. And it's a document that's legal, and I believe it's legal in North Carolina. And it even says that in here. Okay, I think it is legal in North Carolina. But you have to make sure that you make it a legal document. You can adapt this. You can put it on your computer and edit it. Okay, this is just a guideline. Some people work with an elder attorney or an attorney about this. Some people download stuff from the internet. It's all fine. So you're going to have, number 1, your last will and testament. That's an official, legal document. I think most of us are familiar with it. That's about your assets. That's only one piece of paperwork. That's your assets. What am I going to do with my house? If you have a retirement account or any money, stocks, anything like that, Bitcoin, cryptocurrency. I think you can even will airline miles, somebody said. Again, I don't know, you check it out, but there's all of that stuff is your assets, and that goes on your last will and testament. Some people have in their last will and testament other things included in the 5 wishes, like what I wanted to say to somebody, okay? But that's going to go in I'm going to put that in a different area now. So I'm just going to say first you have your assets. Bing, 1. Yeah, it's a legal document, talk to a lawyer, make sure it's complete, and when you get it, put it in a safe place, like a safety deposit box or a safe, like a fireproof safe. And the other thing is give a couple copies of it to 2 people you trust, that you deeply trust, that will safeguard it and will know where it is, will know where to find it when you die, and will carry that out. So you can give it to an attorney to keep for you or loved ones like that. Okay, but make sure it's people that I do know some hoarders that lost some of my stuff. They didn't know where it is. So make sure it's somebody that you trust that's responsible like that. The second thing you're going to have, and Venerable Kadra is going to go through a Dharma will. And one of the things I believe I attached in the things that Donna is downloading is a Dharma will, a sample. So again, you adapt it. So what I did is I took some of this and then I put it in a computer document for myself. And what these 5 wishes are, think about it. These are your health care directives, separate from assets, health care directives. So what this is called is like a living will. And these are the wishes, think about it. Some of you have already prepared this. The person I want to make care decisions for me when I can't. The kind of medical treatment I want or don't want. That's number 2. Number 3, how comfortable I want to be. Number 4, how I want people to treat me. And number 5 is what I want my loved ones to know. And you can adapt any of this. Now, when you make all these arrangements and your assets and anything else you want, okay, you need to update them every few years. Things change. So you may have people, like I have, and I'll explain that in a moment. Okay. So then you fill this out and you adapt any of, now if you get a document of the 5 wishes, which is legal in North Carolina, it has samples of things. If you don't know what to say, then you can just cross out on here what you don't want and leave the rest that stands as what your wishes are. And I'll give you an example. The person I choose as my healthcare agent, think about it. You list their name and you list a second choice, and this is all notarized. Somebody has to have a witness and things like that. And then it gives you some samples. This is the person to make choices for me about my medical care or services like tests, medicine, or surgery. This care or service could be to find out what my health problem is or how to treat it. It can also include care to keep me alive. If the treatment or care has already been started, my healthcare agent can keep it going or have it stopped. And it has different things about my healthcare agent would move me to another state to get the care I need or to carry out my wishes. They can authorize or refuse to authorize any medication or procedure needed to help with pain. They could take any legal action needed, donate usable organs, all that. So if you don't like some of those things, you cross it out. I don't want them to deal with my organs. I don't want them to move me to another state. I don't, and then it has a space, you write in extra things you hadn't thought about that you want listed. Now the thing is, when you choose that person or people, have a discussion with them. Will you do this for me? Let them know. Don't just have a surprise, here's a document, and they never looked at it before. Ask them if they'll be your person. It may change because they may move away at some point. They may die. Your healthcare people die as well. Okay? So you do have to sometimes designate someone else, especially as we get older. But make sure, are you sure they're going to honor your wishes? So meaning they may say yes and yes, and then it comes to, well, she needs a feeding tube, and they're kind of like, I'm busy and we're moving to Iowa next month and I can't really deal with it, so I don't really want to do the feeding tube route that's going to keep her alive, or, for longer, because I can't deal with this right now. So you want to make sure they're going to be there for you for the long term, and the wishes, and you can discuss it with them. Then you have 2, wish for the kind of medical treatment I want or don't want. So there's examples here of what does life support mean to you. It means different things to different people. So you want to get clear with this agent, this person or people you're designating, and it gives you examples, very clear examples of what it means. What in case of an emergency means. What do not resuscitate means. What being resuscitated means. Like that. And hospitals will ask you now, do you have a DNR? That's a do not resuscitate order. And what you can do in some hospital systems, Philadelphia has this comprehensive hospital system, and what they'll do is you can bring your paperwork, they'll register it, and they'll have it. So whichever hospital I go to in that system, they bring up my records, and there are the documents. And some people choose to do it. Okay? And the reason why that could be helpful, as long as you update your paperwork and get it to them, is a friend of mine was taking care of his mother. She never wanted to be on a respirator. She said, if that's the issue, let me go. If I'm not breathing, just let me go. Okay? She goes into the hospital for an emergency, asthma, whatever, can't breathe, whatever, and he has the DNR and all the stuff about do not resuscitate. The hospital's job is to keep her alive. He doesn't have the paperwork with him, and he lives 45 minutes from the hospital. Okay? So she's there, he runs back home, an hour and a half later he comes back and she's got a breathing tube down her throat and she's trying to pull it out and pointing to him, get this out of me, till he could bring the paperwork. So there's all these kind of emergencies that happen, and some of you have been through things like that. And you even have very, serious things about life support. If I'm in a coma and not expected to wake up or recover, then I have a list of what's that. If I have permanent and severe brain damage, not expected to recover, what do I want done? If I'm in another condition under which I'm not expected to live, if I'm not returning to any quality of life, what do you want done? These are very specific things you can think about. You're close to death. What kind of medical treatment do you want? You may want something different when you're 57 as opposed to when you're 87. Like that. So that's why you can update things. Number 3, how comfortable do you want to be? People always ask me, is it okay to get morphine? She was in a lot of pain. Is it okay if we give her, what most people I know, Buddhists that I know, is they want to be able to be lucid to do their practices or to hear the practices, but you're in a lot of pain. So people try to find a balance. Little bit of pain medication, enough that you can handle or can you sustain so that you can be lucid. Because some people, too much morphine and they're not lucid. So that's a personal choice. But can you at least let your medical caregiver know what you want? You want to try to find the balance. And sometimes they have those machines now, morphine, you can push it yourself. So the pain's getting too much, I can control when I want it. Like that. And it may change over the course of a day or a couple of days, where sometimes you want to be out of it and just be able to sleep, the morphine to be out of it for a little bit so you can wake up later and be more lucid. Like that. And you can have how comfortable you want to be. I wish to have my favorite music played when possible until my time of death. Okay? I wish to be massaged with warm oils as often as I can be. I wish to have personal care like shaving, nail clipping, hair brushing. That's your personal choice, what you want. Now, what you can do, and I wish to have religious readings. I wish to know about options about hospice and emotional support and things like that. So again, you can change it, because a lot of times, for me at the end of life, I don't want to be touched. Other than here. I don't want people massaging or, giving me foot massages, which a lot of people do when people are dying. They think, because reflexology can be nice, but I don't want that when I'm close to death. Like that. And it can be as specific as possible. Here's something, I want my lips and mouth kept moist to stop dryness. If that's important to you, there it's listed. If not, you cross it out, white it out. And then you can add your own little things like that. And here's an interesting thing. If I show signs of depression, nausea, shortness of breath, or hallucinations, I want my caregivers to do whatever they can to help me. So sometimes I've been with people dying and they're having visions. Some of the visions are scary. You know, sometimes I'm with people in a coma and suddenly they're gripping. Suddenly they're in a coma and something's happening, okay? So in a coma, you know, sometimes I can just speak to them calmly, remind them of their practice. You know, Rinpoche's with you, Rinpoche's watching over you, chanting a mantra quietly to them, and sometimes they relax, you know. I've also done Tonglen meditation next to people's bed. It's amazing how they seem to relax when that's happening. If in a coma, even if, you know, I don't know what effect it has, but it seems to have some positive effect. And no one there needs to know you're doing anything, Tonglen. We're going to do that a little later. Okay? So hallucinations, somebody's telling me they're seeing these visions, and I can say, I understand that's your internal experience. You know, so sometimes we're trained with more advanced practitioners. That is a type of purification. It's like you're having a bad dream. They say when you have a nightmare in real life, it's a type of purification. Because your subtle consciousness is experiencing something really scary. You're purifying something. So just remind them, that's not your whole experience. It's simply something arising right now from your karma. Think about the Guru. Think about His Holiness the Dalai Lama. Think about if you know the person's deity. And you could start doing some practices for them. And sometimes it alleviates, you know, and that reorients them. And the visions go away. And just remind them about purification. Again, depending on your relationship with the person, you know, and you can let other people know that you're close to. If this is happening, this is what I want done. Number 4, how I want people to treat me. Some people will say, I wish to have people with me when possible. I want someone to be with me when it seems that death may come. Okay? Some people want to be alone. Maybe you don't care, then it doesn't matter. Cross it out. Okay? I want to have my hand held. I want to be talked to whenever possible. You know, for me, I don't want my hand held because I don't want to be touched like that. I wish to have others by my side praying. And here, I wish to be cared for with kindness and cheerfulness, not sadness. That's you know, these are all samples. I wish to have pictures of my loved ones in my room near my bed, or not. I wish to have pictures of my gurus next to my bed, or something like that. You know, and things about if I'm not able to control my bowels or my bladder, I wish for my clothes and bed linens to be kept clean, to be changed as soon as possible. I want to die in my home if that can be done. So these are different samples. Okay, now if you are someone who wants to die in your home, right, think about, is this the home that you're in now? Is your home prepared for that? Because I do know people that got their home together. The ground floor, no steps, widened doorways for wheelchairs, and made sure that the bathroom could have a wheelchair go right into it with all the different bars and no bathtubs, things like that. That's not going to work necessarily. So you have to think about all those things. I know people that renovated their bathroom to do that, to accommodate them. And think about if you do want to die at home, who are the caregivers? Do you have enough money for 24/7 care? It's very expensive. Do you have insurance that will cover that? Right? Do you have children that will take care of that? Whoever you're asking that to do, is it in place? And are the people that you would like to have do that, are they able to do it? It's a lot to ask some people, to ask your loved ones to be there to do it. It's a lot to support. So you just want to think about that. Is that the wisest decision? Nobody wants to go into a care home necessarily. Most people don't. You know, you're sharing rooms or, you know, whatever like that. We have this idea about care homes. But think about, can your loved ones support it? I've had friends that her parents lived into their 90s, insisted they're going to be home. They had enough money, okay? But they had 6 kids. All of them lived away except one, my friend. She was the one having to manage the care that took care of them, 24/7 care, right? But she still had to manage it. It was grueling. She wasn't doing the actual physical care. Sometimes she was, but just managing. And then one caregiver calls, I'm sick. And then you have to get a replacement. And then she had an agency and they sent somebody who wasn't very good. And then it's a constant juggling act for everybody I know that is using caregivers. And it's possible to do it. And some of it works well. And, sometimes you have somebody living with the person, but they also need breaks. And that means somebody else, you got to get somebody to cover. And there's always complications like that. So it's just something to think about. Number 5, my wish for what I want my loved ones to know. Sometimes it's too hard to express something to them before you die or in person. So it has all the different samples here. I wish to have my family and friends know I love them. I wish for my family and friends to get counseling if they have trouble with my death. I want memories of my life to give them joy, not sorrow. And I wish for my family and friends to look at my dying as a time of personal growth for everyone, including me. This will help me live a meaningful life in my final days. So it gives you a whole variety of things, or cross out what you don't like and write in what you want. And it has things even here. If anyone asks how I want to be remembered, please say the following about me. This was my friend writing her own obituary. If there's a memorial service, this is the area. List music, songs, prayers, readings, poems, what you'd like there. And then space for any other wishes. Then you have witness statements. You have witnesses, notarized, and a legal document. And then this would go with your last will and testament, all your assets. It's going to go with that. And then what I have is an additional pages of my Dharma practice, Dharma things. I have a thing of all my Dharma practices copied. So if somebody doesn't know what they are and have the copies, they can just read from the materials, okay? Then I have memory sticks, okay? And memory sticks fail. So make sure there's a few memory sticks. So I have it on my computer with the password code access that's written on my instructions that goes to 2 of my family members, okay? And then I have a list of all of the lamas first in that order, and then all my Dharma friends to be notified. So phone numbers, emails, and then you have to update it because my main person now passed away, Lama Zopa Rinpoche. So I've got to figure out who's gonna, that needs to be updated and changed. And just make sure, so my niece came to me, she goes, I'm not Buddhist, I don't know what you want, I live near her. She's like, what do you. So at the top of this instructions is one person they call or email, and that person calls 3 people. And those 3 Buddhist friends told me they would fly into Philadelphia for me if I'm dying or to take care of stuff in a Buddhist manner. Right? And then what they can do is they're going to connect with my 2 family members that have these 2 memory sticks and access to my computer, which is a 3rd backup. And on that is me recorded all my prayers the way I like them done. So all they need to do is pop in the iPods, make sure the battery's charged, push the button, and off I go. And they can just leave that running over and over and over. So they don't have to worry what's happening. Maybe there are people that will sit there and do something and things, but if nobody's there, most probably I'll be halfway around the world from any of that stuff when I die, but at least it's ready. So, and what happens is I updated it during the pandemic. I have to update it again, but it's pretty updated. It just keeps your mind relieved that that's there and somebody has it, and then I know that at least that's ready to go. Any questions about that? Yes. And these are just suggestions that I'm saying that I found really relieves my mind to know I've got that stuff ready.
Thank you. I have one comment. You could put your stuff in the cloud and then it can be gotten anywhere?
Yes. Yeah, you can do that as well. Thank you. Yeah, mine in my computer, so it's backed up on the cloud. Yeah.
My question is, as you mentioned a coma, and as a Buddhist in a coma, I'm not sure what to ask. Can you be asked to allow, to die, or?
It really depends on, and there's many different kinds of comas. So there's medically induced coma where they're trying to get your brain to heal. So they know they're planning to bring you out of the coma because they think you will survive. And some people need that from a brain injury, head injury, the brain swelling. They take out a piece of the skull. This just happened to a friend of mine. And basically they leave. Sometimes the piece is out for a few months and they're planning to put it back in, but the brain needs to heal. Actually, Elise would know more about this from her nursing background. Okay, just correct me if I'm wrong. But so there are times they'll put someone in a medically induced coma to let the brain heal like that. That's different, where they're expecting you to recover. They think there's recovery, but there's all different kinds of other comas. And it really depends individually what sort of coma the person's facing. Are they very elderly, 97 years old, and they're fading out, and it doesn't look like the brain activity seems slower and slower and slower. We're not, and the person is very weak and doesn't have much quality of life. But it's not about creating the space for them to pass away. It's just making them comfortable, I think, at that point. Depends. If somebody's much younger and something happened and they slipped into a coma from surgery, or, there may be a real avenue to try to get them to recover and figure out what's happening. And then they can sort some things medically to bring them out of the coma, that they wake up.
I guess I have to look into coma because I'm thinking that they're doing something to keep you alive. But you can be in a coma and just be living on your own.
Like I said, there's different kinds of comas. So there's comas where I would say, and Elise, feel free to jump in, where sometimes they'll talk about someone, and we've read about these in the newspaper, in the news of people that are in what they call a vegetative state. So there's been some accident, there's been a mistake of surgery that didn't go well, medication, allergy, and whatever it is, suddenly there's a huge allergic reaction or something that didn't happen in the brain. They're not waking up. They're not waking up, and they're not waking up for years. And suddenly the body is contracting, and all this stuff goes on for people in long-term comas. My mom was in one for 7 months, and just seeing what went on in that level. The body starts swelling, hands start curling, like there's a whole withdrawal. And so they start evaluating, as far as I know, the brain activity. Is their brain function? Sometimes I remember with them talking to my mother, it would look like it was slowing down. They're seeing less brain activity. So it's not going in the right direction for them to wake up. There's sometimes tests they can do. There's medication trials. We tried one medication trial with her that could have woken her up. We tried that. We got approval from the hospital. We had to go through the whole safety division thing, and we tried it. It didn't work. So
I understand. So you need to choose people who are going to think and be open to whatever the doctors recommend.
That's right. And you want to make sure they're aligned where you, and these wishes are very specific. So you want to say to them, I want you to work along with me if I'm in a coma and they think I'm going to recover. I want everything done possible to get me to wake up. If they reach, and they will reach a point where sometimes they go, there's nothing else we can do. And you're also facing, so you want to discuss with the person, if you're facing financial difficulties, which a lot of people do with comas, the hospital's going to kick you out. They don't let people stay there with comas much anymore. Insurance won't pay for it. They send you to a care home. They'll send you to a rehabilitative place, okay? But generally, you'll end up in a care home where there's not rehabilitative things going on. There's not going to be physical therapy, occupational therapy, speech therapy, if nothing's happening, if you're not responding. So if they see some improvement, then they start sending the therapies in, and insurance will pay for that. If not, they stop all those services after a while, right? And then you can pay on your own privately and say, but I want that stuff to stimulate them. That's your choice. Then you run out of money quickly. It's very expensive, okay? And then you say, well, I really want them, and we're going to get them in a care home in their own room, and that costs extra. And and then what happens is, I think Medicare and Medicaid takes over, and they'll start to pay. But sometimes in care homes, you're sharing a room. You could be in a small ward, and we know sometimes what the care is like.
Okay, thank you.
And then coma, long-term coma patients, as we know, end up with bed sores. And it's amazing how bed sores will take you down and kill you. Like, we don't think that, but people need to be turned regularly, they need to be washed regularly, linens changed and all that, and that doesn't always happen in even the best care homes. So that's the situation. So you want to make sure, you want to say to somebody, if this is the case, I need you to get me the best treatment. Some people will do it, and even people I know that agreed to do it and are really great, sometimes they're too busy. They just don't have the time to get that extra scan. They waited 2 months, it was too late, they didn't get there that day. This is reality. I've seen all sorts of it with the best of intentions. So this is just our transition out. This is what it's like. You set it up as best as possible. You know, at least there's care homes. Like in India, you're on the street if you don't have any money. You'll be on the street, basically, you know. Somebody asked me once, when you think about it in the long run, a friend asked, do you have a retirement plan? You know, this is some years ago. And I do. Buddha, Dharma, Sangha is my retirement plan. I'm not kidding. So now I'm not pie in the sky, you know. I didn't make a lot of money, I didn't aspire to that, but, you know, I have my little savings, my whatever. But I said to them, so you work your whole life for retirement. Some people amass a lot of money. Most people I know, even with a lot of money, the cost of living to be old, my dad had it all mapped out till about 85, 90 years old. He lived to be 92. What happens to those 2 years? Those 2 to 5 years? Well, fortunately, he had 3 kids who could chip in and help and make sure. And then my father, God bless, in 1995, it was a long time ago, a cousin of his or someone, a friend, said, oh, there's this new thing called long-term care insurance. It was all new at the time. They didn't know. And my friend said, we're getting a policy, and this is what it does. So my parents got a policy, an old policy. And it gets more and more expensive every year to pay the premiums. So we ended up chipping in with my father to keep the premiums. We went to an attorney, an elder attorney that was a friend of ours, to look at the policy. My father goes, I don't want to pay the premiums too much anymore. I don't want to pay it. So the attorney looked at the policy, and he said, you want to keep paying these premiums. You have the best policy. These policies don't exist anymore. So that long-term care policy basically covered him from day one of needing care for the rest of his life. There was no lifetime limitation. Now when you get a policy, right, you have first 90 days you have to pay on your own, okay? And that's expensive because it can be $10,000 a month that you're paying, okay? And then the next part was you pay for how many years you think you can afford. So most people I know bought it for 2 years, 3 years, or 5 years maximum. They can't afford anymore. They don't have any lifetime unlimited policies now like that. So what happened is that enabled him to go into a very nice assisted living center, and it paid more than the amount of the center. And that was the agreement. They would pay more, and we got a check every month. And then I paid the facility out of the check, and the rest went into a savings account. And that was the arrangement until he died. Right? Unbelievable. Just incredible. So now some people are taking the money instead of the plan, and they're putting it in, you know, a high yield something to do. They're choosing to do it that way. It depends. It's your personal choice how you want to do it. Those plans are expensive. And but I really think if you have your Dharma practice, and so I said to my friend, I said, you know, the worst case scenario is they end up on the curb dying out in the street, right? How long would I last like that? 3 weeks? Maybe a couple of months? Right? So I'd kind of rather, you know, take a gamble on that than spending my whole life where people are never going to have enough money anyway, most of them ending up in a care home, right? Which is probably where I'll end up. So again, care home may not be the optimum thing, but if I have bodhicitta in my heart, if I'm kind of thinking, oh, I'm in a care home, look at all the people I can help here, how kind I can be to the nursing staff, maybe, you know, it's a whole different experience. You know, and there's one county-run nursing home near me where I live. It's huge, And it used to be kind of like, ooh, who would want to go there, right? And some people I know that have been there said they had a really good experience there. So it just depends. It just depends, you know. But I think if I have my Dharma practice in me, hoping nobody ever starved on the Buddha's watch. And so think about your mind. Think about your mind. But it is helpful to have those external things taking care of your body in a way that you feel conducive. You know, it would be hard for me. And in the older days, everybody had, my grandmother's nursing home, everybody had a TV at the foot of the bed. Nobody can hear, so they were blasting, right? Fortunately, they've invented noise-canceling earphones now. I will have those on in the nursing home. So I can do my practice like that. I hope I'll be, you know, something like that. So it's just something to think about. Yes, Mark.
So, a question is, what if we, by putting this person in charge of seeing that our wishes are taken care of, we realize that by doing this, we may be creating a larger burden on them than we should put on them?
Mainly it would be ask them. People have asked me, can I give you my end-of-life stuff, right? And so I accepted it, and then at one point I was back on the road traveling, and I reconnected with the friend before I left. And I said, I just want you to know. And then she had moved as well. And so then I said, oh, by the way, I just want you to know I still have the packet. I'm aware of where it is. But, you know, I'm going to India for this length of time. I'm not going to be around. And I said, I just want to check in with you. And she said, that's okay. I've got 2 other people in front of you on the list. So that was great. And I said, and she goes, are you still okay to be 3rd on the list? And I said, I am. They can just call me. And I said, I may not be able to fly in if I'm in this retreat. So I was really honest. So just ask people and let them know what you'd like them to do. And I asked people, because I asked the 3 people that would fly in, I specifically asked them, here's where I'm living. Would you fly in? I will make sure there's money for you to fly in. And would you be there? And, you know, these are the kind of things I'd like you to do. And they said, sure. So, and then I have the people who will call them. So I think it's just responsible to ask people. And it's perfectly okay if you say, I can't handle it. You know, I'm taking care of my mother, I'm taking care of my kid, I don't think I can do any more right now. That's perfectly fine to say it. And just say it, you know, I'd like to, but I'm really feeling pressed right now.
Right, so in my view of it, I was trying not to put pressure on someone to feel that they had that responsibility, right?
Yep.
And even though they may take on the offering to take care of it, it's still creating a burden.
Well, I think you just ask them. Otherwise, what are the alternatives, right? I think it's okay to ask people. I mean, again, we want to help each other. This is a Buddhist community. Here, you got the perfect means to make friends here and check with some people. You know, the center can be enormously supportive, right? In times of need and times of great tragedy and difficulty. That's what these centers are about. So I don't look at that as a burden, you know, but I will be honest with somebody if I cannot do it. It's okay to set boundaries, but I think it's perfectly okay to ask people like that.
If this is appropriate, but do we still have the file where, say, you're single or you don't have others that can care for you, that we can put our wishes in the file so that if we die, you guys then can do the things that we need? And that can alleviate, for me, alleviates so much fear of what's going to happen.
So I think that's one of the things Kandala is going to revive next weekend when she does her Dharma will workshop.
Because I would honestly say, I wouldn't put that on the center. Find your own people. I would. Let who know? No, you let your people know. Don't put it on the center. That would be my view. Churches and synagogues don't do that, do they? Right? People have their own thing. It's too. Having run centers, it's too much. too much for the center to put on. You have to be responsible for your own stuff, you know. I wouldn't put it on the center. That's just my own personal view, just from having run centers, and churches and synagogues don't do it. They will hold memorial services for you. They will certainly have an email after it's been announced. So some people feel there's a privacy thing. Don't announce the death, the center. But once it's announced and people know, they will send an email, the service is at this time. You know, here's what you can do. You can come, and here's who you can make offerings to. But to have them have to make the calls and things, I wouldn't put, that's not a center's responsibility. I don't feel that way. You know, I feel like find your own people, and because centers just don't have the people power to do it, is my feeling. So
I'm not sure exactly what Condola has planned, but tune in next Saturday.
yeah, and maybe the center decides to do it, but I wouldn't be happy if I was a center director having to do that for people and making the calls and doing, yeah, it gets really complicated with death stuff. So that's just my own 2 cents. So, and churches and synagogues don't offer that service that I'm aware of. So, any other questions about, yeah, Katie?
I just have a comment, sorry.
Hold it
I just would
closer.
like to recommend that people also do advanced psychiatric directives at the same time that they're doing the will and whatnot, because of the same reason why you would do it. You know, if you go into a coma, you know, you are literally out of your mind during the experience. So, you know, that can happen. And then also,
Sorry, advanced healthcare directives?
advanced psychiatric,
Psychiatric, yeah. Which could be
Directive.
included in the 5 wishes.
yes.
Absolutely, yeah.
And
Absolutely, very helpful.
I wanted to ask, along the lines of what the previous person just said, if you don't have much of a practice right now, or you know, whenever you pass, would it be okay to ask like a nearby Buddhist center to you know, come and do like a prayer or whatever?
Sure.
You know, sort of like, you know, how like chaplains of different faiths.
Yeah,
come.
absolutely.
So, okay.
Absolutely. I mean, that's what Buddhist centers are about, and especially if there's monastics there, or if you don't have monastics, you can have a committee where I know people that have a group that sang for people that came together that would sing, and they'd go to nursing homes and people that were dying, and as long as the person agreed that they wanted that, and these were people that were lucid and said, yes, I'd love them to come to my room, and like that, and they said they can come to my room right up until I'm dying, like right up until I die. Happy to have them come. There can be people trained in end-of-life care and hospice. At the rituals, like I'm somebody that does the last rites for people in Buddhism. I'm well trained in it, and have holy water, and I've got all the, you know, I have a death kit with me right now in case any of you die right here. I'm ready. So I just keep it because I've used it. I've used it at times, and it's handy. We should all learn how to develop, those of you interested, to develop those materials. I have a little vial of Kala Chakra sand from His Holiness the Dalai Lama, things that I you know, get honey, put it on the crown of the person's head. You can get the blankets for the mantras. I don't carry those with me because I can't. Somebody said, do you have the blankets? And I'm like, no, I do not, in this little purse. I'm sorry, I don't, but I got some other things. Holy amulets, the holy 10 most powerful mantras that are in the death materials I copied, that should be in the materials you've got. You'll see the list of those. Do the best you can. So at first it's overwhelming, but then you just do the best you can. You can make a little kit, and then, so it's very helpful to have somebody from the center that is comfortable to do it. And I'll give you an example, what happened to me in Florida. I teach in Florida every year. I go there the end of this month. And I went down one year, some years ago, right? And the center said they didn't have anybody there, but they go, we got contacted, and the Geshe was away at the time. And they go, this woman's dying, and she's been a member of the center, but her 3 daughters are Catholic. And they don't know what to do, but the mother wanted some Buddhist practice. So they told the daughters, and the daughters were amenable. And so they said, can you, she's in Miami, can we take you to the house? So I was like, sure, and it was far. They drove me to the house. I had my stuff. The main thing is if you come in, I first got the daughters who were adults, and I just said, I took them out of the room, and I just said, what would you like? I said, here's what I have. I have the 5-minute version, a little bit of holy water, some mantras, and then I have Medicine Buddha pujas that I had with me. I had 5 copies with me. So I said, if you'd like, I could also read this, and it will take about 45 minutes. So it's another thing I can do. I said, and then I have this other thing, and then we have this other book, and we can do some dedications. I said, there's no pressure, and there's no obligation to do any of this, whatever you'd like. And they're like, we want it all. We want the works. And they had this hospital table in her room, and they had found the Medicine Buddha and a Medicine Buddha mantra on it. So that was rolling already in the room, sound, with audio. So I said, this is fantastic. And they said, we didn't know what to do. We got this on, and she was in a coma. She'd been in a coma a couple days, this woman. So I said, great. So then I said, you're welcome to participate if you want to join. They said, we want to join. We'll read with you. They were great. They were amazing. So we did the whole practice. And then I asked for honey, and I put some Kalachakra sand on her crown. And then I had this, I had an extra blessing string I gave them. We put it around her neck. And then I had an amulet that I said I can leave there as long as they get it back to me with the 10 holy mantras in it. And I explained everything that I was doing, and the holy water, we put a little bit in her mouth. I had a mani pills and I told them exactly what to do. And so then we did the Medicine Buddha practice, and when we got to the mantra, I was saying, we were doing it out loud, and then I leaned over her, and I said, Hilda, this is what we're doing, loudly, and I said, and we are, right now, this is what I want you to visualize. As we do the Medicine Buddha mantra and the light rays, I explained the whole thing. We started doing the mantras, and then one of the daughters is like, look. So she started doing the mantras. So she was here, she was there with us doing the whole thing. She must have been so happy. This is what she wanted. So she seemed so peaceful, So we finished everything. They were doing the mantras. The daughters were like, oh my God, they're crying. They're like, this is just what they all wanted, crying. And we did the mantras. We finished, do the dedications. And I left. I think she died about 2 days later. And they were so happy. They were really happy. So it's a service we can provide and it's not that hard to learn what to do like that. So, I know in the Catholic tradition, the priests come in, and the priests have been there for years, but we can all learn how to be there for each other and do some of these things. And in the meantime, you just do the best you can while you're doing it. That's good enough. It's good enough. It's really helpful. Like that. Another question about that? Thank you. So let's take a 10-minute break. And what I want you to do also in the break time is I want you to reflect a little bit, make some notes. Make notes of what kind of qualities would you like to develop before you die? And what kind of habits do you have, mental habits, that would you like to reduce before you die? Would you think about that in the break time? Okay? Thank you.
Sorry, Venerable Amy, did you say 10 minutes? Okay. Yeah, I just kind of blanked out for a second. So we'll come back at 3:25.
Tell me your name again. Samantha. I'm trying
Okay, everyone, it's time to regather in the Gampa. Please make your way back into the Gampa.
Okay, so we may go a little bit over, but I know we started a little bit late. I want to talk about some other practical things. Organ donation. What does Buddhism say about organ donation? And it's a personal decision, personal choice. There's nothing right or wrong about it. You want to donate, you don't want to donate, that's fine. What they do have is and we talked a little bit about this yesterday, if somebody is a serious meditator, they tend to opt not for organ donation. And the reason is, as we discussed yesterday, when they need your organs, you are basically on life support with no opportunity to recover, is the thing. It's brain death, things like that. So, but they do need to keep you alive so the organs can be fresh, that are viable, basically. So some people they want to wait till the consciousness leaves the body. They want to not have anything interrupt the meditation. That's a personal decision. You say, I don't want to be an organ donor. There are people I know that want to be organ donors because so many other people can benefit. Again, it's your own personal decision. We do not do euthanasia in Buddhism. I mentioned we don't euthanize our animals. We try not to. Again, personal decision, what you want to do. We can make animals comfortable. As I mentioned, I have split up sleeping pills and pain pills for animals, just kept them as comfortable till they can naturally pass away from cancer or old age. It's hard, and when you're taking care of a large animal, it's inconvenient for you. For some people, I know they say, I have to go to work every day, the dog, they mess the bed, I have to keep changing. You can get animal diapers, but it's hard moving a large animal, lifting a large animal, like a big dog. So get help to do it. We've had animals that we have brought in boxes, we put them in wagons, we've taken them to centers. You have a stupa here, walk them around the stupa, have them carry it around the stupa. We've done that many times with animals. It's really good for your animal. Like, it's one thing you can do because you have a stupa here. So it's very, very helpful. But it's hard, so you have to make your own decision of care for the animal. I know some people that had old cats or dogs and they were about to go on a big trip. You have to think about it with your aging animal. If you're going to embark on a big trip and you're leaving your 19-year-old cat that's not doing well, and if somebody agrees to take care of the cat, just know your cat may die when you're gone. Okay, that happened for me. I was caregiving my friend's cat with cancer and she had to go, and the cat died when I was there, and I just did everything I could do for the cat, and she was grateful. But see if there's somebody that's willing to do that for you. Some people don't want to get involved. So we do the best we can. There is euthanasia in other countries that support it. So I think California may have assisted suicide, or in Holland they have self-assisted suicide. A friend of mine did that last year because he had very bad cancer. It's all approved by the government. You have to submit forms, doctor's forms, everything to make sure this is your decision. And he decided to opt for that because he had very bad pain, and it wasn't curable or treatable or anything like that. So that is a personal decision. Buddhism would basically not participate in the euthanasia. They would say to allow you yourself to do your own pain management with a medical team, with your caregivers, and until you just normally pass away is what we would recommend. Doing as much prayers and practices around you as you can would be the Buddhist response like that. There was something else I was going to say. It's very, also, so suicide. Suicide is, in Buddhism, not really something we would encourage at all. It's seen as harming, even though you're harming yourself. Some people with chronic illnesses, again, this gets into the self-assisted suicide, but also for other reasons. If you think it's an answer, you're mentally ill, people commit suicide for all different reasons. They're angry at somebody. They want to get back at somebody. They want to get out of somebody's way. If it's due to mental illness, please get help. Please get the person help. Drug and alcohol counseling can be helpful. You do the best you can, though, because addiction is a very serious illness, and sometimes it's just that person's karma for that life. I do know people managing adult children with serious addiction. And now that the child's in their 50s, it's very hard to cure it. You know, they just have this kind of personality, and you do the best you can to manage it. Setting boundaries is really helpful, but it's very hard to do that when you're often the parent, you know, like that. But you do the best you can. It's very, very tricky. So suicide is, seen as a harmful act, harming yourself, and it cuts a really jagged, rough, slice through all of your loved ones. So don't do that. It's not an option. Please don't do that. Please get help. Please reach out like that. What happened in COVID that was very challenging, a lot of people were committing suicide. People get too isolated. They get very isolated, and for some people, I'm used to retreat. I've spent a lot of time alone. I'm comfortable with that. Most people are not. So see if you can reach out to people if you think they're very lonely. They've expressed to you that they're lonely. They're isolated. They want to connect somehow. See what would work with them. Try again and again like that, because often they'll push you away. No, And those can be signs. And sometimes with suicide, I was trained in some of this counseling. If you suspect somebody is suicidal and they're very depressed for a long time, if you're close enough with them, directly ask them, have you thought about suicide? Or you're not suggesting it to them, but or if they bring it up and just say, oh, have you thought about that? And if they're kind of go, well, and go, do you have some idea of how you do it? They say to actually ask people, because if they really have an idea of how they're going to do it, they're quite serious about it. There's some people that will say, I don't know, I never really thought how I would do it. Then they're not as serious. But if they are thinking about a method, they are thinking about it. So get them help, please. Whatever you can, beg them, plead with them, tell them, make deals with them to get them into some sort of help that you can support. Often you can get them past that point where there's joy in life again, they're among the living. The other thing is, if you have any friends or loved ones, anyone you know, that had a suicide attempt in the hospital, in a psychiatric ward, they're at the highest risk for succeeding at some point. That's the highest risk, those that try it in the hospital, if they don't succeed, but they're the ones that really need to have a watch or have some more serious attention like that. And sometimes there's nothing you can do. So better not to blame yourself if you can. Like, just, you did everything you could, and try to use the coulda, shoulda, wouldas that start up the guilt, the blaming yourself like that. It's happened. It's super, super unfortunate. That person also has their karma that they're living through that is separate from yours, okay? But if you know them, they're a loved one, they're a child, whatever's going on, there's this major connection and hole in you that is connected to that experience. So you have your own karma as well, but sometimes there's nothing you can do. You know. So blaming yourself isn't going to help it, right? It's just you pick yourself up. The healing process takes time. Takes time. The years do heal things, okay? And then you're bigger to help other people going through it. So again, it opens up this raw wound. It opens up, it breaks all your pieces open, okay? Can you find a way to put the pieces back in a new way? A new, healthy, wonderful way that includes your Dharma practice. Like that. It's not easy. My brother-in-law committed suicide after 11 years of mental illness. Most wonderful bodhisattva person on the planet. Amazing. Just very, very ill. Okay. So think about mental illnesses that you know people. What happens is cancer gets a lot of respect. Somebody says, I have cancer. So with cancer, it's also unpredictable like mental illness. We've all known people with cancer, okay, where they have good days, they have bad days. On a good day, they go for a walk with you. They feel good. On a bad day, they never get out of bed. Can't move, a lot of pain in the body, like that. And so we somehow accept that. They have cancer. So we go, mental illness is the same. Good days, bad days, they're out of control, they're having a breakdown, they're sobbing in the middle of the street, they think this car is following them, this person's out to get them, on, and then the next day they're fine, taking care of their kids. Right? But we kind of go, well, he was normal yesterday, he should snap out of it. They're ill, right? So just see, can I be there? Can I help? It's hard. We have all different kinds of karmic makeup, and our karma dictates we're with different people that are going through things like that. Really can be very challenging. So we just do the best we can. Do the best we can. Sorry, I forgot another question. Okay, this is in response to, do we always need to be reborn? The follow-up question is there ever a time we don't need to come back? When all sentient beings are Buddhas, then we may not need to come back. When is that? I don't know, right? But mainly on the Mahayana path, you would want to come back in some sort of form, in some sort of world system where you can, again, get to be a Buddha to benefit all those living beings. So I'm not sure if there is, I don't know if there's a debate about samsara has countless living beings. They use the word countless, numberless. It's not an actual number, but they do say that eventually you're designed to get enlightened because of the fundamental goodness of your Buddha nature. That will manifest, that will shine through at some point. So then does everybody get enlightened? And if they all get enlightened, then there's no more sentient beings we'd have to come back for to do that, like that. But I think because of the beginningless nature of mind, there'd always be somebody cycling around that there's always be somebody to help. So I think a lot of it is getting beyond the concepts we have of our more solid world system, how we always think, Monday is Monday and time exists like this. I don't think things really exist like that at all. But we have some sort of construct that we function in. Planet Earth, its galaxy, time, things like that. So, but I think on another level, especially when you get into emptiness and tantric practice, everything is really a dance of light, right? And what you're trying to do is become that light. And in the meantime, there's shadows on us based on imbalances in our mind, like that. But the more you can kind of see it in that heavenly guise, I think more beneficial, where all these beings really exist. They're all dancing around us like that. So I don't mean to sound like I'm on LSD or something, right? But I really do believe there's something to that, like Like you can hear the Dakinis singing is what I mean. They are singing all the time. It's just we're sometimes too obscured to hear that, to hear the sound. What we hear is, I want to kill this person, and there was another mass shooting, and there's a war in Gaza, and we hear that really loudly. But there's other stuff behind that. So that's what we're trying to do on the path is access that world system. Okay, a few more things I'm going to go through is how to get your life together then, a more practical way to practice. Let me make sure I got everything. Yeah, and then I want to do some Tonglen meditation before we finish. There's something from Lama Zopa Rinpoche called, and one thing I did want to say is how to make sure it's clear in your wishes how you want them to deal with your body. Do you want to be buried? There's green burials now. There's different systems of these green burials of how they can get rid of a body in a very clean way. Cremation. A lot of Buddhists choose cremation. Where do you want your ashes to go? Do you want them buried where your mother is and where, do you want them scattered in different places? You have to consider if you want your ashes put on the moon, that's going to be very arduous for whoever's left behind to do that. So make it reasonable for people. They could be scattered around a few centers. Make it reasonable so that somebody's not left like carting around the planet, your ashes that are, and things like that. If you want, leave them money to go around to these places. Make it easy for them. Do you have your pets in your will? Have you made allowances for your pets? Okay, think about that. My great aunt died at 90 and left no provisions for her 11-year-old Australian shepherd. She had money to leave provisions. She did not. Okay, I ended up having to place the shepherd, trying to find a home. I wanted to keep him, but I couldn't have a dog at the center. So it took me a while to find it, and then the dog had a medical problem when he got to the new home, and it cost $3,000. So I had to contact her sons, who had the money, and talk them into they should write a check to this family, which they did, and the dog lived happily ever after. But think about those provisions in your will for your pets. Is it assigned who they're going to? Did you ask somebody? And is there money for the food and things like that can be really helpful, or at least a little bit like that. I'd be happy to take Tashi. Okay. And then, and again, we have something called POA. POA is a Tibetan word for transference of consciousness. Transference of consciousness. What does that mean? It means that with the right karma, okay, and the right authorized person, who is trained in POA practice. Any of you can learn how to do POA. You're doing a certain practice that has been transmitted to you by an authorized person, a highly realized person, hopefully, right? And it's quite easy to actualize POA. Through this practice that you're doing daily, you can actualize, which means you're extracting the consciousness. You start to get a tingling on your crown. You might get a little fluid at the crown of your head, is a sign of realization. Once you have that sign of realization, you have a commitment through the POA practice that any single dead being that you encounter, when you encounter them, within a reasonable amount of time, you need to stop whatever you're doing and do a POA practice for them. It's a commitment, okay? But otherwise, what you want to do is, if there is a lama, somebody that's skilled in it, you could ask them, well, just after the person dies, whatever, could they do a POA extraction of consciousness? It means they're just kind of sending that consciousness to a pure realm or a better rebirth, if you have faith in that. It has to be a highly realized being generally. I know there was an old story of Lama Yeshe. There were 5 chickens at the top of Kopan Monastery. Something happened. They forgot to close the coop, and a fox got in and ate the chickens. And it was everybody was all, this is years ago, everybody was distraught. Poor chickens, and it was a thing, and the suffering of the chickens, and the feathers were, and Lama said, oh, it doesn't matter. I sent their consciousness to a pure realm before they were, lucky chickens, right? But again, that's Lama Yeshe. That was, so I did watch in Tibet they do sky burial. I watched a sky burial once. I didn't realize you could watch it. I brought a pilgrimage group there, and wowee, it was something to watch. It was one of the most effective ways to dispose of a body. I looked at it and I was like, I want that. It's what I want. It's not legal in the States for a variety of reasons. And it works well in Tibet where you have a lot of vultures. That works really well. It was fascinating watching the sky burial. It's a whole other talk. But there were 2 bodies that day of a 40-year-old man and an 80-year-old woman, and it's a ritual. It's a sacred ritual. It was done on a sacred mandala, like a rock formation, by a lama and 2 monks that were trained at a monastery. And what he did in the Gompa, this was in Tibet, he had done a poa practice to extract the consciousness. And then what he does is very skillfully, when the clothes are taken off, and then they cut up the bodies skillfully, to feed a lot of animals on the sacred site. And it's a whole ritual of burning some incense, and as soon as the vultures know, this goes on every day, this monastery pretty much, they bring the bodies in from Lhasa. I think it's wealthier families that can do it, something like that. But the vultures knew as soon as the smoke starts, the vultures start appearing. There's no vultures there. They're all in there. And suddenly there were like 300 vultures, hip high. But vultures eat decaying flesh. They don't eat live flesh. So they don't attack people. But they came in with full force, adult all the way down to babies, big birds. And they come in and they're held back with slingshots by Tibetan men around the edge of this mandala, this stone surface. And then the Lama skillfully, what he did was, the way he cut up the bodies is dispersing some of the fattier tissue around so more vultures can eat. Because if they just leave the bodies, only a few vultures can get there. So I was watching, it's very skillful how he did it, right? And then suddenly when the lead bird jumps the line and they all come in, all crowded in, and so the Lama and the monks, surrounded by the birds, just slowly moved out. In 10 minutes, the birds had everything picked clean. 10 minutes, right? But what's left are the skeletons. And the skeletons had some, a little bit of stuff on them, okay? So then the guys come in with the slingshots, and it's a dance. It's like this, the birds knew. Birds move out. Guys with the slingshots come in, hold them around. The Lama comes in with the attendants, takes the bones, pulverizes the bones with these mallets, and mixes it with tsampa, roasted barley flour. So it's easier for the birds to digest, to get it down, okay? Goes in, takes the skulls aside, puts the skulls aside, 2 skulls. Now, my precious thing where I was standing is I was with the old woman's side. So when the birds came in and her skull got separated from her body, which is normal with old people. The bones are more brittle, and her skull came rolling right out to me. And I was like, death. Like, this is all I am. This is, certainly not what I am, but this is it. This is going. There's a few, when you're really watching. Anyway, so they take the skull, then they pulverize the bones, and then he spreads that out again. Birds come in, 10 minutes, pick clean. Done. And then he has the skulls. Then they have a representative from the family. They don't have any family members because you don't want to see this with your loved ones. It's not, family member representative comes, and what he did is he showed them the skulls, showed the top, and the woman had 2 holes, top of her skull. The guy had 1, and he said, as a result, the poa was successful, extracted their consciousness to a better rebirth, whatever thing. The representative will go back to the family and say everything was successful, like that. Then the Lama sat there with the skull, took the mallet, pulverizes the skull, mixes it with the tsampa, spreads it out. Last birds come in, clean it up. Birds all fly off, they're gone. And the last thing are the dogs, and they lick the stone surface clean. It took 2 hours. It was all done in 2 hours. It was so efficient, environmentally friendly, feeding all these animals. I was like, that's the way to go. Second way I really thought was Rinpoche's mother, who was cremated on the banks of the holy Ganga River in India. The body had rigor mortis, but they basically got her into a position, meditation posture facing the river, and then they did a cremation. That was really very impactful to watch as well, with Rinpoche there while we recited the Heart Sutra, meditating on emptiness. very effective way. So there are other things that you could, if you have the money, you could go over to these places, arrange something probably, but it's an endeavor for anybody that you're putting that on after you're dying and things like that. But there are other rituals that people do. That was impressive. The only thing I'd recommend is, if you ever have an opportunity to watch a sky burial, if you're in Tibet or something, bring a handkerchief, load it up with lavender oil. I'm serious, the middle of and what happens is, some of my pilgrimage group left in the middle at the disgusting part, the cutting up. It smells. It's decaying flesh. The consciousness is left. The smell took a couple days for me to get that out of my system. Have the lavender oil. But the thing is, if you leave in the middle, you're just disgusted. For me to watch till the end was incredibly effective for my mind. I was like, wow, gone, like that. Just efficiently, we're not this body. We're just passing through. This is a vehicle. So make sure that what is held in the vehicle, your mind, okay, that you're getting it better and better and better each time. It's really important. How do we do it? 5 powers. The 5 powers. This is an entire life's practice that's assumed in the 5 powers from Lama Zopa Rinpoche. Number 1, the power of motivation. This is your daily practice. Some of you are already doing this. Power of motivation. And this is also from Venerable Yangtze Rinpoche, dear friend of mine, Practicing the Path. This is his book about the Lam Rim, and he says any kind of practice that is accompanied by the 5 powers becomes very profound, simply by the power of these actions. You can do this practice wherever you are, however you live. All that is needed is your own Buddha nature, your own potential to attain enlightenment. A, the power of motivation. So again, beginning of the day, beginning of any exercise, what's your motivation? Please set a good motivation. It's a key component of our practice. We do many virtuous things, but we didn't set a motivation. With the motivation, even stronger for you. Even stronger, especially a Mahayana motivation. I'm doing this because I want to be a Buddha to benefit all living beings. Even going to the bathroom, if you have a good motivation. We have to go to the bathroom for our health. It's just normal, okay? We do it in a mundane fashion. I just need to do it. If you go to the bathroom and you have angry thoughts about somebody in your life, negative karma, okay? But if I go to the bathroom and go, I just need to go to the bathroom for my health and I want to return to the session, I need to get on with stuff, but I want to do it to maintain my health, to use my life to become a Buddha, to benefit all living beings. For that purpose, I'm going to go to the bathroom right now. It's a little loftier for your mind. So any activity you can transform into something more virtuous by the nature of your motivation. That's what makes an action dharma. And the other thing that makes it dharma is I'm focused on this action to counter delusion in my mind. That makes something dharma practice. Number 2, the power of practicing virtue. Power of practicing virtue. Okay? Merit, creating merit. They talk about this sometimes officially, the power of the white seed. I don't like white seed, it's racist. That white is good and black is bad. I don't really like that. So I even lead my Tonglen meditation differently, okay? Can be seen as racist. So what is merit? Understand merit is this good energy we need, and we need a certain store of it, an amount of it, to get enlightened. So think about positive activities you're doing. You're helping the center, By the way, this center needs help. They didn't make an announcement, so I'll make an announcement, okay? Centers are forgetting to make announcements because everything's online. Even those of you online, okay? But think about, centers always need volunteers. There's so many ways you can volunteer and help the center, right? You can make offerings to the center. There's just so many ways you can help. Like that. They can't do it all by themselves. You come in and you go, it looks good here, everything must be taken care of. It's always nice to offer help. Many ways, small ways, big ways. Okay. So this creates merit for you. It's a virtuous action, especially if you do it with a good motivation. Okay. And then what we do at the end of an activity is we dedicate, and that seals in the merit. Seals in the merit. You can destroy a lot of merit with extensive anger. if you didn't dedicate? How does the actual dedication process work, and how does that get started? I don't know. I've asked that question many times. Okay? But it's really nice to do a dedication, to seal it in. Think about it. You can dedicate to anybody you like, all the people struggling, all the big world things, anything like that, something personal, something bigger, can make the dedications. And that's why, so creating, and what happens is, what we're trying to do is we do purification practices in Tibetan Buddhism that clear away obstacles. But I need to clear away the negativities in my mind stream, but at the same time, I need to accumulate positive conditions to practice and move along the path to enlightenment, to get enlightened. When I clear away all the negativities and accumulate all the positive conditions, I automatically become a Buddha. So merits all the positive activities. Another one, sometimes these are in different orders, the power of familiarity. Okay? Meditation in Tibetan, the word is gom, G-O-M, gom. Gom doesn't really mean meditate, it means familiarize or habituate. So meditation's a form of habituating yourself with virtue, with virtuous mind states. So think about what your mind's familiar with. What would we like to make it familiar with? Okay, that's why we call it practice. Meditation practice. Because anything you got good at, you practiced. You had to practice. If you're a good athlete, if you play a musical instrument, if you're very good with your tech stuff, you did it again and again and again. That's how you got good at it. Same with meditation in your mind. You can exercise your mind like that. Okay? So effort, making the right effort. So when they talk about in the six perfections, the first is generosity. Okay? First is generosity. So generosity is where it creates the flow of Dharma in your life, flow of Dharma in your life. Okay? And then you have practice of generosity, perfection of patience. No, perfection of ethics. Sorry, I've spaced out on my six perfections. Ethical guidelines, ethical goodness. Okay? Good conduct, basically, number 2. And you want to have good conduct because that's how we're going to build concentration and develop wisdom. Okay? Number 3, patience. Patience. Perfection of patience. And then you have something called enthusiastic effort, enthusiastic perseverance, or joyous effort is the 4th one. And this isn't just about effort. It's effort at doing virtue. Effort at doing virtue. Okay? So effort requires enthusiasm, aspiration, energy when you're doing the right kind of effort. Okay? So think about, how can I keep my practice full of effort? How do I do that? Changing up the practice sometimes. How can I keep it full of positive energy? Okay? Because merging with other Dharma practitioners, talk to other Dharma practitioners. Get techniques from them, come to centers. Here, I find that join programs and things like that. Do a little bit of retreat and look at your mind. What do you need to change? What questions do you have? Get answers to the questions like that. So what are you familiar with? Keep familiarizing yourself. Can I introduce more positive things with the mind? Okay. Power of the antidote. Power of the antidote. So this is, again, the flip side of merit. Power of the antidote, where I'm applying a technique to clean away and also to prevent my mind from falling into the imbalance, into anger, into attachment, into fear, into confusion, into jealousy, and all those things, preventing. So I have to apply an antidote. The famous Lojong verses, one of them talks about vigilant, the moment a delusion appears in my mind, I have to apply an antidote to it. Soon as the delusion. But what happens is, you see anger come up in your mind and you let it go on, it carries on. You talk to your coworker, he's like that, he's such a jerk, he doesn't, and then it grows in your mind. Okay? So we want to immediately nip it and go, no, I'm not going to participate in the negative speech. We have to do this at centers a lot. Especially residential centers. People, blah, blah. It's just natural. He did this, right? I used to nip that one. It becomes like a poison virus at a center. Everybody brings everybody down. So you want to be very careful with your own mind. I want to keep my body, speech, and mind directed in a virtuous way. So think about also power of the antidote. How can I cultivate mindfulness, awareness, remembrance, introspection? Okay, these are all positive mental factors. Okay, and think about using them. Again, you become fearful. Okay, so what happens with fear? People fold in on themselves, or they lash out at somebody else. Fear out of what I would say insecurity. A lot of people have insecurities, and then they act from there, and sometimes they blow people away with a gun from there. But what if you could just kind of say, I'm really aware that I'm afraid right now, and you say that to a buddy. I'm kind of afraid, I'm afraid of this, or I'm afraid of that. And you just name it, and then you're just mindfulness with it. Sometimes in your own little experience, breathe in, breathe out. This is fear. That's all. Just acknowledge, Or breathe in, breathe out. This is anger. This is anger. Then you have introspection. You go in a little deeper. So what am I really afraid of? So I teach a different course. I've done it here in transforming negative emotions. So you have fear. Then you have to analyze the fear. What are you really afraid of? Really go in there. Peel back the layers of the onion to get into that juicy place. In the middle of the onion, it smells in there, I know. But go in there, because then it'll eventually disappear. You go in and then you realize, I'm not really afraid of that, I'm afraid of dying. Oh, I'm not really afraid of dying, I'm afraid of dying in a lot of pain. Okay? What can you do about it? There is some pain management, and you know what? That's all I can do about it. There's nothing else you can do. So why be fear? Why hang around with that fear a lot? Keep me marked. So you have to go in and look at it. Right? And then you go in, you get angry at somebody. He did this to me. Somebody hurt me. Somebody hurt my loved one. Go in. You have to understand karma. It came from my mind. That's a hard one to swallow. That's a bigger practitioner. Came from my mind. Have I ever done that to anybody? Yeah. Buddhism says it comes from my mind. So if I lash out at them and get angry at them, what Buddhism says, because of karma, you're going to revisit that scene again and again until you get it right. And what getting it right is, I'm not going to negatively vomit out my stuff on you. It's coming from my mind. And I'm starting with Lojong, mind training, which is a higher level. I'm starting to see you as a precious teacher, because somehow when we're always together, it's always difficult. Use that person. They are a gift. Is it uncomfortable? Yeah. So is samsara. But this is how we practice. So some of it's done on my cushion, where I'm again and again showing up, familiarizing my mind with that. Then I come out and I'm in front of the person, and I can be a little bit more reasonable. I can say, just as I want to be happy and don't want to suffer, so do they. But boy, are they strong right now. So let me just very delicately not engage in any negative speech with them. Let me be very careful. It's the best I can do. Okay? The better work you do on yourself, and then power of the antidote, the more purification I do, eventually that person will go away. Or, and I've had this happen in my own life, they'll become your friend. Become your friend. I'm excited if it happens this summer when I go to Laudo. There is a nun up there who is, there's going to be a few nuns, but one of them, years ago, I met her in California, but I knew she had been to Laudo before. I was excited to meet her. She's from another country. But I'm like, we have this Laudo connection. I've heard about her. I want to meet her. I met her. Hi, I'm so happy to meet you. She hated me. She never met me before. It was amazing. I was really like, wow, this is the karma. You go nuns like this? Yeah. It was whatever. She had other stuff going on, I learned later. It was a whole, but whatever it was, I was the target. My special friend. It went on, it was really molted into this. She's at one center, I'm at another center. Very difficult working, oh my goodness, right? I got a mediator, because I want to finish this now. I'm not taking this to my death. We are finishing this business. I created some karma, I owned it. Something in the past, it wasn't this life. I never met her before. I never said a word about her, never said a negative thing, never had a negative thought about her. Past lives. She comes in, I got a mediator. Somebody from our organization knew we sat down. You can always apologize. Great antidote. Apologize. Sincere apology, though. Sincere. I've done it many times, but you can say, but you didn't do anything to her. I did something in my mind that created this. That's Buddhist practice. So I said, and you can say this with people that believe in reincarnation. I said to her, I'm really, really sorry, whatever I've done to ever disturb your mind in this life or past lives. I said, I really, really am sorry. And I really sincerely apologize. And I really hope you'll accept my apology. That was just like that. I said that to her. It's me and her and the moderator. She looked up and she said, those are empty words. Just threw it right back in my face. This is my purification. This was really good purification for me, seriously. Okay? Can you see it like that? We get hurt. It's not about me. It was like, I'm like, okay, I need this, done this. She threw it in, but slowly from there, based on that apology, later that night at the center, we were in a big retreat at the center. At the center, I think I even got her a gift, whatever. I really meant it. You have to mean it. You can't just like, here, you mean it, right? Later that night, okay? I did find out all these other people had issues with it. It was a longer story, but whatever. I had to own my part. That later that night she came. She couldn't speak to me. She gave me a little box of incense and she wrote a little poem about it. That was the best she could. I was like, I accepted it. I said, thank you so much. And ever since that, it got better and better and better and better over the years. Over the years, better and better and better. We're friends now. I like seeing her. I like her. I support her. I'm happy to, I'm always like, great. And so I found out, and then she found out, I'm going to Laudo this summer to do retreat. She said, she's going to Laudo to do retreat this summer. And she says, and Amy's going to be there, and I'm so happy, and I'm so glad we're going to be there together, and I'm happy we're going to be there together, and this is evolution. We have to do it this way. Because hating her back is going to I'm going to come back in another life and she's going to hate me. What's the point? You have to do this work. It's not easy. It's not easy. I had to swallow all my pride. She doesn't want to talk. She's talking to everybody else, not talking to me. I could see her like, it's hard. It comes from my mind. It's just me. I've made a lot of mistakes in this life. Right? But you can purify Vajrasattva practice. If you get time, 2 or 3 months, do a Vajrasattva retreat. Incredible thing to do in this life. Those of you retired, no excuses. You can do it right in your house. Right in your house. Do a session a day. Might take you a while, session a day. Fantastic. And then think about antidote. How can we ensure that all of our actions serve as factors to oppose our self-cherishing and our self-grasping? That's really our practice. How can I develop bodhicitta and realize emptiness? Because that's what counters self-cherishing and self-grasping. That's our job, and we need those 2 wings of the bird, bodhicitta and emptiness, to get enlightened, to fly to enlightenment. 5th power, dedication and prayer. And that's what we'll do at the end. We'll dedicate. But we're going to do a short Tonglen. I have to introduce Tonglen practice. Dedicate your merit, I mentioned before. We want to seal in whatever positive energy we did, seal it in before it gets destroyed. And the best thing we can dedicate to is our getting enlightened to benefit all living beings. So there's a lot of other practical things I can say for caregivers. For instance, if you just give me a little bit more time, is when you're caregiving people, some of you already know these things, okay? You're coming in, could be a close family member, somebody you're really comfortable with, your partner, okay? Or you're a hospice worker, something like that, okay? Can you come into a place, into the room, it's your session, it's your time, you're the one on the shift, or you're just visiting somebody, you're not handing out advice, please. You're just showing up. Don't hand out advice. Okay, unless somebody asks you and you have some information, but don't come in with, I've seen people disrupt a whole care unit, scheduled, organized, and then the sibling comes in to relieve somebody so they can get a week's holiday, and they fire one caregiver and change the entire thing because I knew what was better. I told her, don't hand out advice. Check the situation first, see what is needed. You can be silent, be still. Here's another thing. See the ordinariness of death. It can be very ordinary at times. Doesn't have to be as dramatic. You come in the room, they're sleeping again. Yeah, it's quiet. The caregiver's having a snack, a sandwich, TV's on. Just like that, right? Can you express friendship in the face of death? Friendship in the face of death. You know, some of my friends that died, and you're just there, and maybe you're reminiscing some fun experiences you had and telling them what they mean to you. You can do things like that. Being honest is, and that's a hard one. People get uncomfortable, so you say the wrong thing. You know, you look really good now. You know, and the person's like ravaged with cancer, right? It's just be honest. One of my friends at the end was dying, ovarian cancer, not a way you want to die. And at the end, and what happens is people that are actively dying get confused. They get confused. She woke up, she mostly sleeping, she woke up and didn't know where she was. Didn't know, why am I in the hospital bed? I want to get out. I want to know what's happening. She couldn't really move, too weak, but agitated. And I was there with one other friend. That friend had been a hospice nurse for years, and we were both by her side, and we kind of said hi, and we told her our names, that we're here, and that she's still really confused. And then my friend, the hospice nurse, said to her, she goes, what's happening? Why can't I move? What's happening? And she said, you're dying. She just decided to be honest. And then what happened is my friend was okay with, and she kind of heard it, and then somehow it got her back oriented where she was, and then she said, okay, I got it. She got confused. Better than starting some trip that might have them more agitated, if it was an appropriate time for her to say it, like that. My aunt that was dying of pancreatic cancer in the hospital at the end, so what happens is you get weaker, and she was actively dying, and the hospice nurse came, and her 2 kids were there, and she kept trying to move, and she kept saying, and she got a little confused, and then she said to the hospice nurse, well, what's happening? You know, am I going to get better? And then the hospice nurse just said to her, I thought this was really just a gentle, and she said to her, well, she said, yesterday you could raise your head, but today you can't. And then my aunt kind of registered that. She got it. She kind of reoriented herself, knew what was going on, closed her eyes, and went into a coma and slipped away a couple hours later. Just, you know, sometimes people need a little bit of help to, you know, figure out what they want to do. And my mom, I remember we said to her the day she died, she was really fighting for months and months, and we didn't know what she recovered to any kind of quality of life. They told us not, but she was still going. And then I sat down next to her at one point. I don't know if she could hear, but I just said, you know, Mom, and she wanted whatever means possible. So I said, you know, we're here, Mom, we're all here, and if you want to keep fighting, if you want to keep going, we're going to do whatever we can. We've got the best medical help for you. And we're just going to keep going along with you. And if you're tired and you want to let go, that's also perfectly okay. Like, it's up to you, whatever you want to do, and we're going to do whatever are your wishes, and whatever we take cues from you. It's okay, even if you can't express yourself, we're going to follow you, we're going to follow your breathing, be there with you. And she just kind of slowly, over a couple hours, just slowly let go, like that. Or we would have just kept on going and doing what she wanted to do. So communicating honestly is really important, but as appropriately as you can. You don't want to be too harsh or tactless, or depending who's in the room, that you say something that really upsets somebody in the room. You know, my dad, believe it or not, God bless, 91 years old, he died at 92 of cancer. He had a girlfriend his last year. Don't you love it, right? I was happy for him. She was a lovely woman. But he got cancer, and she couldn't accept it. And she kept thinking he was going to get better. So she was by his bed, and he was really weak, and you couldn't really express, but it was really lovely to see them together, and he was really happy to see her. And then she said, well, I'm here when you get better, and I want you to get better soon. And she kept talking to us about it, that, when he comes down for dinner, and then we were trying to explain to her that sometimes you have to, with some other people, explain that, it doesn't look like he's going to get better. It doesn't look like he's explaining, the cancer and how bad it was. And with some people actively dying, please talk simply to them. You don't need to talk louder necessarily, but sometimes you might. Some people are hard of hearing anyway. Talk slowly and simply, especially with stroke victims, please. They're there, stroke victims, especially the ones that are recovering. Okay, but they can't process a lot of fast talking, loud talking quickly. But they are there if you speak slowly enough to them. They hear you, they will respond. It may take some time. So with certainly actively dying people, another thing is don't freak out. It's dramatic enough. Try not to freak out. If you need to freak out, go out in the hallway and have your sob in the shower or something. Don't do it in front of them or in front of other family members like that. You can freak out with a family member, you want to cry together, do it out of the room if it's possible. Okay? Unless the person expresses to you and they're a close friend and you want to cry together. That sometimes happens. Dealing with pain and suffering. This is really a hard one. Dealing with pain, you come into the room. This happened with me as a hospice client. I did emotional support hospice training, and you were teamed with people. And I had a guy, we were together for 2 years, Rick. And AIDS is a terrible disease to die from, especially in the late 80s. It was horrible, and it was just horrible. The way they didn't have the medications, and his lover was HIV positive, looking at his future of what was happening, and Rick was dying. And I came to the door of the apartment. It was my time to visit, and his lover's at the door and goes, I'm glad you're here, I'm leaving, and leaves the apartment. And Rick is screaming in the back, screaming in pain. What do you do? I couldn't leave. I was the only one there. So I come in the back, and he's screaming, and he's sitting on the edge of the bed, whatever, and the medication wasn't working, and his whole body was just ravaged, right? So what could I didn't know what to do. I was like clammy, sweaty. I stood at the doorway. There's nothing I can do. It's not like so you can start nervously talking about it. So I came in. I didn't really know what to do. But once you deal with pain like that, you're better able to deal with it again. I sat down next to him. I asked if I could sit on the bed next to him, and he could just nod while he screamed in the middle, screaming. I couldn't say anything. I had nothing to say. But we had already exhausted, the thing. We had been through the medication thing. So I just sat. He was sitting there. He had some kind of IV tube, I think, some kind of fluids or something. He was hanging onto it, I remember. Anyway, I just sat there. We just sat together, right? And then after about 10 minutes, I had a feeling, just go with your gut. I felt like I should put my hand on his back. I just felt somehow to connect to him. So I said, while he screamed, I said, can I just put my hand on your back with that? So we sat that way for about 40 minutes together while he screamed. Somehow maybe the pain meds tipped in. Whatever it was, it started subsiding. I was able to slowly get him back into bed. The IV thing I moved, and we got slowly, and he started less, somehow pain was, everything changes. So even pain changes. Right? Sometimes it doesn't seem like it will. But even the pain's changing. And I remember I was leaving, so I put him back in the bed with the covers, and then he grabbed my wrist, I remember, really strongly, and he said, thank you for not leaving. So sometimes you don't need to say anything, but can you just be there? And it's so hard, but now that I did that once, it's easier for me to be there with somebody else's pain that you can't fix. Can't fix. Sometimes it's just like that. So there's a little bit also of allowing chaos. You come in the room, they suddenly have to do a chest x-ray, somebody's taking blood, this beeper's going off, this person, and with my mom sometimes in the room, I was like, I could just be there doing my medicine Buddha mantras, sitting on the side in a chair. Sometimes they need me to leave the room. That's okay. Go in the hallway, take a little walk, get some fresh air, come back. Sometimes they say, can you come back in 20 minutes? Okay, thank you. I'll be back in 20 minutes. Allowing the chaos. And then dealing with the politics of dying. Paperwork, all the different things, insurance, just make sure, is it set up? Have you discussed with them in the hospital, in the hospice? We're Buddhists, or whatever your belief system is. Our belief system for Buddhists is it possible for us, how long can we leave the body? Our belief system is the consciousness leaves 3 days later. Is there any chance of that? Or we've done it at hospices where we could leave the body for 3 days there and then call the caretakers to come and take the body. That was allowed. Hospitals often won't allow it, but discuss it with them. Discuss it with caretakers. Do you want somebody to sit with the body? Is that necessary? So often we'd have prayer vigils, everybody doing medicine Buddha puja with the person there. You could sometimes do that. I've done that with people. Or not, and you'd say they go to the caretaker, and then the center organizes a memorial where you can all do the medicine Buddha together. Visualizing the person, kind of picture the person in front of the room, can do things like that. Try to do the best. And here's an odd one for you. When it's appropriate, can you maintain a sense of humor? When it's appropriate. When it's appropriate. So, meaning, and I will tell you the story of a friend that his brother was dying of AIDS, and his brother was very funny. And in the end, and his brother insisted that their mother, who was a housewife from Long Island, New York, with a heavy Long Island accent, she was a dear woman, she's passed away, but he wanted her to read these New Age books by Stephen Levine when she told him he was dying of AIDS, and that was when his parents found out that he was gay. So they had this big alarm, finding out their son's gay, and now he's dying of this horrible disease. So he says he's very close with his mom. I want you to read these books. This is what I'm doing, Mom, with my mind. Okay? So she, God bless, she read some of the books. So now he's actively dying, the whole family's there. And the parents have been divorced, they remarried, there are a bunch of kids, a bunch of extended family. He's passing away. He's in the bed, in a coma for 2 days. And there is his mom over him, touching his head, rubbing his head. This is her kid, right? And she's leaning over him at one point. My friend was there, saying his brother. And she's leaning over and she's saying, Stephen, go to the light. Go to the light, right? And sure enough, he lifts his head, he opens his eyes and lifts his head, and he looks at her and he goes, I'm trying, Mom, I'm trying. Okay, this happens. This happens. So you never know, things are so unpredictable what will happen. There's always that gush, the last day somehow, the person's dying, and all of a sudden there'll be some last zest, and they sit up and they're looking good and feeling really great. It's almost like they've accepted. And there's this last little zest, and you go, are they getting better? Are they? And then the next day they die, pass away. So any last questions before we do Tonglen, a short Tonglen practice? There's a lot more we could go on and on. And also about allowing, you don't always need to be in the room. This thing, to be there with the person. Donna.
This is not so much a question as a comment. A few months before my mother died, she was 97 when she died. She lived in Colorado, and I went out to visit her, and I knew about the 5 powers, and my mother was very open-minded. So I wrote her a letter about the 5 powers, and with the power of motivation, I would say, and I could see this in your life. How you were motivated in this way and I went through each of the powers. And when I went out there, I gave it to her, and she didn't open it while I was there. And now that I'm a parent, I can, she had a lot of guilt and self-hatred in her life, and I think she was afraid it was going to be one of those, here's all the things that you did to me. And she lived with my sister, and for the last few years of her life, when she wrote letters, my sister wrote them for her. But about 2 months after I was there, I got a letter from her, and my mom had written a letter herself, and she said, I can see what you were doing, I really appreciate it, this is really helpful to me. And then she died a few months later, and that letter is still on my altar. So it's a way that, when we know those things, even when the death isn't immediately imminent, with people you're really close to, that there might be things you need to resolve. This is like one of the best gifts I think that I ever gave my mother. So.
Right. Fantastic. Thank you. The one last story, a kind of poignant story I thought I'd mention is just when I was doing the AIDS hospice work in San Francisco General Hospital had an incredible AIDS wing, I think Ward 5A or something at the time, and the staff were amazing. And this is where some people could go that didn't have proper insurance, or they were really taking care of people. It was obviously a long waiting list, but people were in all kinds of hospitals there. And there was a story of a Swedish guy that was dying there, and his mother came in from Sweden. The mothers were amazing. Like, sometimes it was hard for the dads to accept that their son was gay when they found out he was dying, and the mothers all showed up. This woman flew in from Sweden, and so he was very close to his mother, and one of the nurses told me this, and so every day they were together, that he was worse and worse and worse, and he should have passed away. Like, sometimes there were people that were like, what are they hanging on for? Is there somebody you might ask somebody, is there somebody else you need to talk to? Is there something else you haven't finished? When people are, and often they'll tell you something. So this went on, and finally one day the nurse was in there, his mom was in the bathroom, and he said to the nurse, please, I can't die with my mom here. I just can't. And I need you. I always get choked up thinking about this. And he said, can you please, I can't tell my mom. So can you explain to my mom, I know what she loves to do in San Francisco. And I want her to go and visit that garden. And then I want her to go to that cafe that she likes and have the pastry that I always get with her there. And I want her to, and he had this list of stuff. I want her to do our favorite things. I want her to do that today because I need to pass away, and just tell her that I'm too attached to her. And anyway, so the nurse took the mother aside. And you can imagine the conversation. And the mother came, she totally got it. And she came in, and they had a goodbye. And the mother said, I'm going to honor your wishes, and I'm going to bring you with me. And she went off and did her things, and he passed away later that day, like that. So sometimes it's okay. It's okay to go. It's okay not to be there, and see if you know what the person might want before that time. Where my mom wanted everybody there, and we were all there. That we knew that long before she expressed anything. It was just her style. We were all there, and some people don't need everybody there. So don't beat yourself up like that. Okay, let's try. So Tonglen is a very powerful meditation. This is going to be very short. It's giving and taking. Some of you are familiar with this, okay? So eventually you can do a full Tonglen practice, and you can learn, and there's some stuff on my website. If you need a card, there's stuff here. But you can, and one thing I wanted to mention, in longer retreats, I lead a meditation on your own death. On your own death. The reason you reminded me was you just got up and got a tissue, because everybody wails at the end, right? There's one passage where they wail in it. But it's very effective, but it takes about 45 minutes to do. And it's very effective for you to try to do that. But with Tonglen, giving and taking, you're actually first taking, and then you're giving. And what are we taking is suffering from whomever we're visualizing in the space in front of us. And people say, I don't want people suffering, okay? You're not going to actually get their suffering, but you're using the suffering to reduce a constricted knot of your selfishness in the center of your heart that you visualize, like a constricted knot that's right in the center of your being. And you're going to use that to reduce that as I take in others' suffering. Okay? And you're doing it mounted on the breath. I inhale, taking on the suffering. I exhale, offering happiness and joy. Why would we want to give away happiness and joy? Okay? Because it's a source of your happiness. Like that. And I'm going to offer that to whomever I visualize. So this is something I do with the news. When I think about the Gazans, when I think about Ukrainians, all the other people starving in the world, I can do Tonglen even for 5 minutes there, in front of my computer, looking at the news story in front of my phone, and just do Tonglen meditation. Visualize as I inhale. Some people do it more specifically in your right nostril. I'm taking in whatever images represent suffering to you, whether it's different colored light rays, whether it's words like poverty, war, racism, images of that, animals that can kill you, poisonous plants, viruses, bacteria that kill you, like that. Taking it all in reduces my self-cherishing at my core. As I reduce my self-cherishing, I'm filled with bigger space, happiness, bliss. Out my left nostril, I offer to whomever I'm visualizing all the happiness, all the joy, all the fantastic rebirth advantages I've had. Offer it, and imagine that being. It enters them through the right nostril, full of happiness and bliss. Full of happiness and bliss. I like to start with myself, okay? So we're just going to do very quickly with ourselves, and then we'll just visualize other conflicted people around the planet. If you want to visualize, just sit comfortably. Lightly close your eyes. Just allow the mind to settle on a normal, natural breath. Please visualize a replica of yourself seated in the space in front of you, facing you. Just visualize as best as you can. Just reflect for a moment on all the various ways you suffer. And think, if I could be free of that suffering, that would be amazing. And as you inhale, you seated here in the room, visualize bringing in through your right nostril all those images and words related to suffering, different colored light rays that represent suffering. You inhale and let it go to that constricted knot at your core, purifying there. And as you exhale, out of your left nostril, all those beautiful images of joy, happiness, your precious life, offer that to the front visualization of yourself as it enters them, bringing them this deep sense of peace and happiness. And let's just add another person, anyone in particular right now you feel really needs some help. Place them to the side of your front visualization of yourself, right next to them facing you. Or if you'd like, you can expand a little bit more if you want to include Gazans, Ukrainians, Russians, Israelis, Sudanese, any beings on the planet that you'd like to do this Tonglen practice with them, taking their suffering. You don't receive the suffering. You're just letting it diminish and purify your self-cherishing. And from a place of grace and expansion, we offer to all of them, just imagining them being freed of all their suffering. So even though we know we haven't sorted the issues for these beings, just as we are doing Tonglen in this pocket of the world, those ripples will go out to the planet. Will have some effect, at least on your consciousness. This is something you can do seated by somebody's hospital bed, in their hospice room, at home, even if they're far away from you. Without anybody knowing what you're doing, you can just sit there and do this Tonglen practice. And slowly imagine these beings happier, more peaceful. And allow them to dissolve back into the space from where they came, leaving you and the front visualization of yourself. Let's just send some good wishes to ourselves and just think, may you be happy. May you be healthy. May you be free from suffering. May loving kindness manifest throughout your life. Please acknowledge that front visualization of yourself any way you like. Before we release them back to the space. And just let them dissolve back into the space. And may we dedicate from this meditation, from this brief meditation, that we may use this practice more and more in our lives, in our minds, to familiarize ourselves with that as a great tool for our death time, and certainly in our lifetime. And may all of the merit we've created from this weekend and from today be dedicated to our having rich, consistent practices that will help us be peaceful and spacious at our death time, in as much control as possible over our mental state, helping us to maximize that experience, that opportunity, so we can get enlightened and benefit all living beings. Please relax. And we're just going to do some dedication prayers, page 235. I'm sorry we're so late. It's useful. I mean, I think it's important Thank you so much for hanging in there. Due to the merits of these virtuous actions, may I quickly attain the state of a Guru Buddha and lead all living beings without exception into that enlightened state. May the supreme jewel bodhicitta that has not arisen arise and grow. May that which has arisen not diminish but increase more and more. Just as the brave Manjushri and Samantabhadra too realize things as they are, I too dedicate all these merits in the best way that I may follow their perfect example. Page 244, short long life prayer for His Holiness the Dalai Lama. In the land encircled by snow mountains, you are the source of all happiness and good. All-powerful Chenresig Tenzin Gyatso, please remain until samsara ends. And at the end of the book, the prayer for the swift return of Lama Zopa Rinpoche. Peerless teacher and assembly of the children of the victorious ones, Shravakas and Pratyeka Buddhas, victorious Losang father and sons along with the lineage masters, all the objects of refuge of the infinite lands, please bestow the virtue of goodness of accomplishing this prayer here and now. Holding and spreading the Muni's precious and complete teachings, through explanation and practice, you wore the armor of patience that is never discouraged. Incomparable Venerable Guru, to you I make request. While striving single-pointedly for the sake of the victorious one's teachings, the sole gateway through which all benefit and happiness emerge, and from other living beings you suddenly departed to peace, what a great loss. Nevertheless, through the undeceiving truth of the blessings of the ocean of the three jewels and the great waves of bodhicitta of the children of the victorious ones, may the smile of a reincarnation swiftly beam in glory for fortunate disciples. So I'd also like to dedicate to all the people in Gaza, and may the hostages also be returned, for all the people in Ukraine, for all the people in all the conflicted places all over the planet, may they be released from their suffering, for all the poverty, starvation, diseases, things like that, for the great flourishing of our centers, especially Kadampa Center, and for all the beings, especially any beings you know personally that need help right now. I would like to dedicate personally to Ross, Harold, Bill, and anyone else. Please say out loud that you'd like to make a dedication. So I'd like to thank Kadampa Center so much for hosting, Linda, and thank you so much, Donna, and all the people that have made this possible, all the volunteers, everybody that's helped me, and Elisa and David for hosting, and all the drivers, and it's been lovely to talk with some of you again and spend some time and meet some new people, and I so appreciate, and thank you so much. Please try to practice. I hope it's been useful.
Please turn to page 100 for the short mandala offering and request for the Lama to remain long. Saji puki chukshing meto tramri rabling shi ni degen padi sangye jingdu mikte uwa gidro kunam dak jingla chu
So this gets offered from the heart. So the first from the head and then the rest from the heart. Yeah, great. Little tips for the trade.
Jetsun lame kuche rapten jing nam karin le chok chuge padang lo zang ten pe chun me sa talk to Negurchig. Idam Guru Ratnamandala Kam Niryatayami.
Thank you for all of you online. Thank you so much. Hope to see you in person.
Thank you so much.